So, welcome everyone, including the children, to this new format of the investment circle. We're going to dive into this week's topic of financial security. And the idea is that I wanted to try and bring something a little bit different to the Star Portal and to the Wealth Rebels show, in that I really do believe that with wealth being different to money and not just about money, and it's not about the attachment of money. And if you are attached to anything outside of you, as we know in this world of wealth, then you aren't truly feeling abundant. You're always going to be in lack. And the breath really connects that. So we're going to dive into the topic today of financial security, and you'll understand why. And this session is really a good reminder of why we do what we do, because sometimes we have to go back to basics. Quite often, we have to revisit the foundations. And we're going to end the session today where we're going to breathe together for 22 minutes of SOMA Breath. That I am going to, in theory, if this one allows, um, fully participate. So I'm going to simply play Niraj for 22 minutes and we will breathe along together. So, first and foremost, I'm really happy that you're here with me in this space where we're going to talk about investing in building real wealth, what it takes to build real wealth, not just the old school, heavy corporate life way of doing things, but the well and truly the wealth rebel way. The star code way, the 8-step formula that I've designed that helps you to build a financial blueprint, a wealth blueprint that's you're not really building, but you are digging into your inner self and pulling out what was already there. And sometimes we work with people because we are just getting the confidence that we already know what we're doing. So we're going to blend money tonight. We're going to talk about the ways that we'll build financial security by blending money with the energy that we have, with the nervous system safety, with purpose and presence, and the power of the breath. Because the truth is, because wealth doesn't start with money, nothing starts with money. Everything starts with your very first breath. You've got a breath, haven't you? And everything ends with the breath, and everything in between is what you create. So the old English word wealth comes from weller, okay? So many of you may not know, but the old English word wealth comes from weller, which is well-being. So your inner well, if you think of all the coins that go in to fill you up, if you really have got to have an attachment to money, can only be founded in safety, where we're really grounded. And this is something that I've learned on this journey as everything has crumbled and I felt completely and utterly loss of identity and displaced. The way that I got back to self, the way that I've come back to you guys with my resurgence of my love and passion for my business is that I got back to feeling safe. Everything is founded on a feeling of safety. And one of the things that I realized is that we don't often feel safe within, even when we have all the money. And that is when the cracks can start to show because we don't feel worthy, we don't feel safe, or we don't feel like the money is ours, or maybe we feel like we're going to lose it all. And this is why a lot of what we do when it comes to investing and it comes to wealth building is a big mindset shift, as well as doing some of the practical things that teach us to be different with money. So, safety is really important. And when we have to be really well grounded, and when the body trusts that you are secure, it will expand. And that's when you become expansive and magnetic, and things start to flow in a new form in a better way than it ever has done. So tonight's session is all about anchoring in that foundation and remembering, because it's all about that remembrance, remembering what it is that we need to do in order to create financial security. So this is all a big part of what I do with my wealth building pyramid within the star code and within all the private client work that I do. So before we get into wealth building and go beyond the expansion, you cannot expand, you cannot manifest, you cannot invest to manifest, you cannot build from a dysregulated nervous system. And it all comes down to the power of your nervous system. I've learned this as well. Even when you manifest and you receive, whether you receive money, whether you receive a job, whether you receive a business offer, whether you build a business and you suddenly have things, you receive love, you receive a new relationship. If you have a dysregulated nervous system, you will, without consciousness, subconsciously reject it in all ways. And when you start to see how the patterns are forming and you can see the loops and the cycles, you start to realize, yeah, this is one of the things that is creating my reality of feeling stuck and not stepping into the abundance that I know that I can create, that I know that I'm very capable of doing. Maybe you've had a business where you've thrived, maybe you've had a career and you're thinking, I just keep losing it. What is going on? And it is a deregulated nervous system dysregulation, which is due to a lack of safety, inner safety, and practical foundations. So, what we normally try to do, and I've done this, I've been doing this probably for the last 12 months, not the last 6 months, but the 12 months prior to the last 6 months, when I went through a big shift when I left my marriage, and then I had a big catalyst that cracked me open. I then went into fight, flight, and freeze. Massive dysregulation of nervous system, and then you start to chase wealth. And if you are chasing anything, if you are chasing anything from money, relationships, clients, anything that you chase after, what happens when you chase it? It runs away. When you are chasing, when you are wanting something, when you are really needing something, it's because your nervous system is dysregulated. You want freedom, but your body feels in danger. And you don't necessarily consciously know this is happening. I certainly didn't until I calmed my nervous system down and got some perspective. You want abundance, but your mind, when you are in fight, flight, and freeze, and even I did a video on this actually recently where you come down, you're still scanning for threats. You're still scanning for danger, even when you get that relationship or you get that job offer. You're like, okay, who's going to attack me next? Right? So you can, when you have a dysregulated nervous system, the threat, the fight, flight, and freeze is always going to be an issue. You want independence, but your system is still in survival mode. And the body is dysregulated. And when it is, it blocks intuition or even your intuition is there, but you don't believe it's there. You don't trust yourself anymore. You can't therefore make decisions. Your decision making abilities are not working. You can't hold on to abundance. Your long-term planning falls apart because you can't think beyond the next day. Someone said to me actually at an event, and this was quite weird actually, a spiritual card reader came up to me and said, you have a problem. You are not able to manifest beyond the present moment because you have given up on the future planning. And I had. I didn't accept it in that moment. I'm looking back now today going, oh my goodness, this is absolutely right. When you start to look back, you can see the opportunities can't come in when you are blocked and your creativity just cannot flow. Instead, you are in a state of anxiety and procrastination. Okay. You end up failing and thinking that you can't, when it simply is that you just haven't anchored in the ability to be able to bloom. If you think about a beautiful rose, a little rose here, when you think of a beautiful rose, it has to put its roots down before it can grow and before it can become a beautiful blooming bush, right? So you need to be able to anchor to create that safety. You have to be able to ground. So the first step to building wealth is not necessarily getting out there and investing. The first step is creating safety, and knowledge builds a level of safety, which is why I hold space to share knowledge, practical investing, and then the breath work that we do anchors in the beliefs because you need to feel safe from the inside out. We use the power of neurogenesis to create genuine new neurological pathways where we believe that we are abundant, wealthy, and limitless. We know that we are limitless in a conscious way because we can see that money just is created. Why can someone else have it and you can't? Okay. So anchoring in this safety, it creates space for the soul, space for purpose, and space for sovereignty to really start. And it leads me to the wealth building pyramid. So we're going to start today with thinking about the ways that we can really embed, number one, your survival mechanism. So when you're in a state of flux, you need to anchor in survival. Sometimes we do need to anchor down and survive. We need to go all hands on deck. And this is akin to your root chakra, okay? Your base, your root, your baseline stability. So, in a practical level, we need to ensure that we can pay our mortgage or our rent, our utilities, our food, our childcare, our transport, and our living costs. How many of us actually know what we need to pay? And we need to figure out ways that we can cover this, okay? Figure out all the ways so that the nervous system stops panicking. When that happens, when we get really clear, and I use, and if you haven't utilized this, you can ask me at any point for my wealth strategy template. Many of you have seen it already. We map out all of the what we call essential spending. Okay, it's not a budget. We don't live on budgets and diets. We thrive when we know what it is that we need to spend to be able to have that survival mechanism, because sometimes we just spend money without consciously thinking about it. And when we raise our consciousness, it's not about pulling back sometimes, but it's getting really clear when, okay, if the shit hits the fan, what do I need to make or to bring in or to ask for if you're asking for help in order to at least be safe? And when you have that anchoring in of safety, cortisol drops. So when you are in fight, flight, and freeze, you are releasing adrenaline and cortisol. You're in fight, flight, and freeze. When you start to calm down, cortisol drops. Your body goes from, I don't know if I'm safe, to, okay, I can breathe. And you need to take that breath. Throughout this, you need to do your breath work as well, because we need to teach ourselves how to breathe in times of stress and anxiety. And that's why practicing breath always gives you the ability to be able to thrive through heightened states of periods where things do go amiss, because we're on a soul's journey where we're going to be tested, right? It's not a plain sailing. We're going to have rocky seas, so you need to be able to anchor down. So when you do this work, even if you're at a point where you're not in that moment, get really clear on what it is that your survival mechanism needs in order to be able to do that. Okay. Nothing spiritual can ever happen when you fully haven't embodied what you need to survive. What are your rations? If you're going to be on a boat, you need rations, right? How much water do you need? All the things that you need to at least be able just to breathe. Okay. Right. You do that.
You can't do it.
Okay. Let's go deeper. Okay, let's go deeper on this. So, once we have got really, really clear on the survival mechanism, then we can start to build on financial security. We can start to go deeper. And this is akin to your sacral chakra or your solar plexus energy, okay? Because we're rising up here. Think of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We are the pyramids, okay? So we're in the boot, the boot, we're not in the boot, we're in the root. We're then raising up into the sacral solar plexus here. What we're doing here on a practical level is we want to know what we need to have an emergency fund. Okay. My emergency fund is pretty low right now. I'm not going to lie. I'm just getting out of survival mode because of going through divorce, right? But I am going to have money come in where my first investment is going to be to buy more premium bonds. Can't wait. Because what do premium bonds do as an emergency fund, right? It's a lottery, a tax-free lottery. You could get £1 million. Got to be in it to win it. It's money that's with national savings and investments. And fundamentally, if you could put some money away into your emergency fund for that whoopsie daisy, we talk about 3 months. I would say starting off even with 3 months essential spending. And you can build this up over time, having that cash buffer, having savings, starting to have savings for holidays. It's not, Rome was not built in a day. And having some level of predictability. What did I do here? I went back into employment. I got a job. Even as the wealth rebel, I went and got an amazing job. It surprised me that I was looking, I needed to go and get a job. I ended up getting a dream job, right? For a fund manager that I really resonate with. And it's been incredible, but it gave me predictability and stability in a team, a place to go where I always feel warm, things like that. And that's where you go deeper. That's where you get that security, where your body starts to trust life again. And this is the key. Often, when you go through really challenging times or where you're thinking of making a big shift, maybe you are not in that transition yet. Maybe you're pre making the change and you're thinking, wow, Emmy's talking here about losing a lot. Sometimes you have to lose a lot to gain a lot, but your body has to trust life can happen again because you can and it will reinvent. You will always reinvent yourself. Okay. So, financial security isn't about being rich. If you think of richness as about having loads of money, it's about the richness of being able to feel yourself in those deeper moments where you trust yourself, you trust your life, you trust that you can start over. You can start over at any age because we know that we can make money. We can make money as quick as we can lose money. Money is in and out. It's just an exchange, it's just a currency, right? It's about not being in danger. And this is what financial security is all about. It's about helping you to be able to anchor in so that you can have the freedom to go and create and have the headspace to maybe start another business. So I don't know why I'm giving thumbs up here. When you know that you can handle a shock, that's when the freedom starts to really unwrap, starts to ripple out. You think, well, now I have the ability to manage a bill, an unexpected occurrence, my car breaking down. 6 months ago, my car was busted and I ended up having to drive to see my dad to get him to fix and pay for my car. I've never had to do that in my life. That's sometimes what life throws at you. Okay. I'm very honest when it comes to, the wealth rebel stands for honesty and integrity. But now, fast forward just a few months, I am not in that position. I'm in my new home. I'm able to stand on my own 2 feet again. I'm able to go for dinner. All the things have shifted very, very, very quickly. And this is what it's all about. Because once you have the ability to handle a shock, You're able to go from not just living month to month, but to thinking more longevity, having some surplus income. Your creativity will wake up again. Your intuition will start to work and you will start to dream again. You'll be like, okay, I can start to dream about having that holiday, traveling again. And the things with your purpose comes back. You start to think there can be a time when you go through this journey of transition, awakening, rebirth, where you think, what is my purpose? What is the point? Stop kicking me when I am down. The purpose starts to rise again. Okay. This is when you really start to anchor in wealth foundations. You start to think more about creating security for the long term, for longevity. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make when they are starting out doing some of this work is that they don't invest. You can start to do regular investing, creating investments into those ISAs, individual savings accounts. Yes, you can have an individual savings account that invests in the stock market. You can buy company shares, even with a few pounds. I I'm going to be buying some shares in a very interesting company that someone really special to me recommended that I purchase, a French company, through my SIP. And I don't have a huge amount of money in my SIP, but I'm taking on some ideas, some stock trades to start building foundations in things that I didn't used to invest in. I used to invest into a lot of funds. I'm now looking at single stock holdings and branching out into even more new areas. I have some cryptocurrency, right? Just a few £100. Regular investing into things that scare you a little bit, because these are things that you wouldn't necessarily invest into with a little bit of money that you do not fear losing. And that is the thing, because you have your emergency funds, you have your foundations, so you know that you're well covered, your essentials, you're now building an emergency fund. You're thriving in the sense that you have surplus income and you're going to start putting a little bit of money into pensions, ISAs, even a stock account, because you're okay to build something real beyond where you are, a future self fund. And that's when the power of compounding starts to happen. Compound interest, compound averaging, where if you invest even that £10 and it makes you 5%, you know, that's money that you wouldn't have had that then gets automatically reinvested in some of these investments. So the layer builds on layer, you start to build confidence, you start to create the foundations of wealth knowledge because you experience volatility. You know that you haven't lost unless you sell at the wrong time. And you're not a forced seller because you already have the ability to ride it out because you have your emergency funds, right? So it's so important that you create all of these layers, even within the security part. So we have different layers within financial security that really helps you to start building on that limitless potential. Because once you've done that, once you have your security, you know that your future security can be built upon from there. You know, you can start to plan holidays and you can start to put parts of your life into action. We're going to come back next session and next talk to go deeper, because we're going to then, once we have security in the wealth building pyramid, then we start to think about freedom and sovereignty, independence at the top, where we're going to start talking more about investing and purpose-led wealth, passive income, all of those things that are going to create that legacy for you to get fully in alignment with what you're here for. Okay. This is all about raising up to that crown chakra, to going higher and higher with purpose, where money and soul really do meet because they're not indifferent. Money is not separate to us. We are everything, and we know that everything is oneness. So, thank you for joining the talk part of the session. I'm now going to open up to the Star Portal now, and I'm going to pause on the recording and welcome in some real life conversation before we start to breathe.